Hi guys, welcome to another episode on Piscator UK. Well, I'm back on the studded venue, which is Loch Lomond, and I'm back on the kayak. I'm predominantly going to be doing a bit of feeder fishing, see if there's any roach hybrids about, all that sort of thing. And I'm out with a few others from the central Scotland kayak anglers. There's 4 of us today. There's obviously myself, Nick Valentine, Glenn and Tam. And I think we'll probably be doing much about the same, although we'll probably have a bit of drop shotting, some lure fishing, see if there's any pike and perch about, but predominantly I'll be fishing the feeder, and I'll probably be doing that at anchor as well, or most likely I will be doing that at anchor. It's a lovely morning, a little bit overcast, quite mild, but yeah, stunning morning. Let's hope the fish are biting. I thought I would do this more of a how do I feed a fish on a kayak, because some people may think it's straightforward, but it can actually be quite difficult. You know, you're on a moving platform, constantly moving, even though I've got an anchor out. In fact, I've got 2 anchors out and I'm still moving. And if you know about feeder fishing, then you know that the feeder's pretty much got to stay stationary, and you need to stay in contact with that stationary feeder on the bottom. So because you're constantly moving, you've got to constantly keep changing your rod position so that you can stay in contact with the feeder, not get too slack a line, and obviously not too tight a line that you end up moving the feeder all the time, which obviously the name of the game is to keep the feeder stationary on the bottom. And I think that's a little roach, maybe. Yeah, so I thought I'd just share how I'm actually fishing at anchor, how I set my ground bait, and what my thought process while I'm feeder fishing. Like most feeder fishing, or all feeder fishing, one of the most important parts is the ground bait, and it's no different on the kayak. On the kayak, especially this time of year in winter, fishing in a depth of water roughly between 25 and 32 feet of water, depending on the area. And because of that, I want to get my bait down to the bottom without breaking up too much. And the species I'm going to be catching in the winter time here on this natural venue is pretty much roach. So because of that, I want to use a nice cereal base fluffy ground bait. And if I was to bait balls up and drop them on the surface, the time it got to the bottom in 30 feet of water, there'd be not much left of it, and a lot of the fish would stay in the upper columns of the water. So because of that, I've made a bait bomb, and I use this bait bomb for sea fishing. It's got a pound of lead in the bottom, and I can use it in depths of water in excess of 200 feet. So I thought it'd be an ideal tool to get my bait down in one piece without breaking up too much. But I've also got the option that I could open it up at any depth that I want to get the fish feeding. It's quite simply 2 pieces of PVC tubing, which I've cut out, got a cone shape of a spray bottle, filled it with lead, and I've just levelled it off with some silicone so that the bait, whatever bait I'm using, whether it be sea fishing, chopped pieces of fish, in this case little balls of ground bait. So how I start my feeder fishing on the kayak is the same, pretty much the same as what I would from the bank. I bait my area first, or I put, you know, quite a few feeder fulls of bait to where I want it to be. So I've marked the area here where I'm going to be fishing with a float marker, which is weighted down, and it's not going to move throughout the day even with a heavy wind. It's got like 10 ounces of lead on the bottom of it, and it's just plain mono all the way to the bottom. And I've made up some balls of ground bait, which is a fluffy ground bait, and I'll put my mix up that I use, and it's pretty much standard for my sort of roach fishing. And all I've got mixed into that, in addition to the ground bait, is some tin temp and some dead maggots. I just put the ball of ground bait into the bait bomb, close up the tube, and I use a rod just to drop it down. I could do it by hand line, but the rod's just a bit easier for placing. And it's as simple as that, guys. And I'm just going to put about 6 little balls of ground bait down in this area around the float marker, and that's going to be the area I'm going to cast to. And yeah, you've heard that right, I'm on the kayak and I'm still going to be casting. First ball going down. You can feel the bait bomb opening up. And that's the bait dispersed. And I'm just going to do that same with the other balls of bait. You may think this is a bit of a faff about, but it's well worth it. Just like any feeder fishing, you know, you want to get your ground bait in the right place so that you can cast it consistently. And it's the exact same on a kayak. And that's the baiting up process, guys. Put this away, probably won't need it again for the rest of the session. And next thing is just to get in the position, anchor up in a suitable spot that allows me to cast easily to the marker. Not casting too far. This is just like ultralight feeder fishing, if you like. You know, fishing on a small venue. I've made the venue small by giving me a small target. So when I'm feeder fishing, I prefer to use 2 anchors. I tried using one and the kayak just moves about constantly, which you don't want to do if you're trying to stay in contact with your feeder. You don't want your feeder to move. And the marker float's probably about 40 yards away from me at the moment. So I'm going to drop anchor here, one of them. And I prefer a plough anchor or a Bruce anchor. It just allows you to tighten up on it without moving. A grapnel anchor tends to move. First anchor set. So it's the first anchor, put it to the back of the kayak, and I'm going to set the next one now, and the next one's more of a drop down, slightly forward. And what I want to do is I want to pull back on the rear anchor slightly so that the lines come like that, and it keeps me more in position, which is really important when you're feeder fishing, that you want to stay as still as possible. The second anchor is a grapnel anchor. There's less pressure on the grapnel anchor at the front. It's time to drop the second anchor. And I'm not actually that far from my marker float. I'm probably 30 feet. Tie that off, and then I'm just going to pull myself back onto the rear anchor and tighten up the 2 points. And that's the anchor set, guys. One at the back, one at the middle that's slightly in front of me, and I'm not overly tight. The front anchor just stops me swaying from left to right. Even though I'm anchored at the back, you will still sway. And I'm probably about 20 yards away from my marker float, which is just a real short cast, and it allows me to fish relatively light feeders. Now, I fished yesterday almost at the exact same spot, and I had a good day yesterday. I ended up with well over 30 fish, and I'm fishing pretty much the same way as I was fishing yesterday, except even though I deep hooked that, seems no worse for wear. I started off with a size 14 yesterday, which some people may think is quite big, but this is a wild venue and I don't think the fish are all that hook shy, line shy, etc. And plus I'm fishing in depths of water, you know, up to 30 feet. So I've stepped it up again today and I'm back on the size 12, and that's the Preston N30. Really good hook, it's got a lovely shape to it, almost square at the end, and the maggots hang off it really nicely. Anyway, that's why I chose that hook, and as I said, just going a bit bigger again today in the hook size, see if I can prevent those deep hookups. Now, one of the reasons I'm probably getting deep hookups, like I said, is on the kayak you may miss bites because the kayak moves towards the feeder. You end up getting a sort of slightly slack line, and if you're not ahead of the game and tightening up on that slack line, that's when you can miss bites, and that's what probably happened there. I'm fishing a standard sort of feeder rig. It's a sliding feeder rig, and my hook length is 1 metre long. I just think, even though I'm on the kayak, I still want to fish quite traditionally like you would from the bank, and I think that metre long hook length gives you that nice fall of the bait through the water column, obviously sinking much slower than the feeder, and it's still sinking after the feeder hits the bottom. As I said, sliding feeder rig, and this is a 25 gram Preston distance feeder which is taped up. The reason it's taped up is I want that to get to the bottom without too much of the bait breaking off. It's got a long way to go down, and I don't want too much bait distributed through the water column and keeping fish high up. So that is the basic setup. I'm fishing straight mono today, and the mono I've got on is 8 pound, and it's the Horizon sinking mono. Really good line. It's quite a fine diameter, and obviously with it sinking, this is one of the lines I actually use when I'm fishing from the bank, mainly at short range, up to about 40-50 yards max chuck. After that I'll go into braid. So because I'm fishing on the kayak and I'm still casting, believe it or not, I'd rather cast the bait still traditional style, as I want that fall of the bait to be just the same as it would be if you were fishing from the bank. So let's get baited up and we'll see how the session progresses. Oh no, not. I can't even feel it shaking. think we are. Yep, just a little one. Just a little guy. Stunning brooch, guys. Beautiful. Guys, don't think it's that big, but still nice over here. Stunning rope, guys. Steel fin tail. Lovely stunning roach, guys. Hey guys, stunning roach to finish off the session here on Loch Lomond. It's been an absolute fantastic day today in terms of being a winter's day. Weather's been excellent apart from being overcast, some drizzle, but you can't ask for much better than that for the middle of winter. It's good meeting up with Nicholas Valentine and meeting up with some of the other guys that goes fishing here on Loch Lomond. I think that probably ended up with about 30 fish today, and yeah, the morning session was a lot better than the afternoon, although it is picking up now, but light's fading really quickly. It's probably about 4:30 in the evening, and I think it's probably time to call it a day. Once again guys, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in an episode soon, hopefully. Cheers guys.